Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Board of Directors agenda meeting for February 28th, 2023.
Okay.
This is our opportunity to review the agenda for our formal board meeting that will be held on March 7th, 2023. Before we go to the agenda, we have a number of different presentations that we'll state and share today. Members of the board, you may remember prior to the pandemic, there would be times where we would do employee retirement recognition, and we'll provide recognition to those team members that have been a part of our team for quite some time and have made the decision to retire. We want to take this opportunity to catch up on those that we were not able to acknowledge during COVID-19. And we'll continue to move forward as we do that today. I'm going to ask Vice Mayor, if you'll I'm going to leave the seat and ask that Mr. Moore join me as we present these presentations.
Mayor, because of we had as you're right, we had a good system in place in recognizing. One of the things we did was they fill out a form, and I would talk about how long they've been here, their best memory awards, and they were sent over late last night, and Susan had to take an emergency trip out of town, so we don't have that. And I've talked to Chief Helton, and he should be here any minute, so maybe we can do these other proclamations and the marathon update, and he should be walking in any minute, so he can also speak to the his former colleagues.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that notation. We'll now, is Mike Garrity going to give the update, or?
Geneva Hampton is.
I don't know why I even thought that. I apologize, Geneva. Geneva, if you would, please. I just received an email from Mike Garrity about the marathon. That's what was on my mind. I apologize.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. How are you guys? And it's Lamb.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. For those of you that are new on the city board, welcome. And I haven't got to meet you officially, but I'm Geneva Lamb, and I'm with the Little Rock Marathon. We have been doing the Little Rock Marathon for 21 years, and we have done it quite well. This year will mark a smaller year from a race field for us, but that is what we're anticipating, or what the whole industry is anticipating, just because, COVID, previous sponsors aren't coming back. So every major marathon in the country is kind of going through the same thing we're going through. But the great thing is that we're going to see about 10,000 people this weekend that are just participating, plus their families, plus spectators, plus volunteers. And so we'll have our final numbers probably next week. But the reason why they come to our race is because we have this little thing right here that they come and earn. And this has been, not this exact medal, but our medals are written up around the world. We've been featured in the Wall Street Journal, various international publications that talk about this crazy medal that we have. And so this year's is still quite glittery, quite heavy. If you would like to hold it, you can. Don't drop it, because it will break a toe. And it has done that before, unfortunately, for some of our participants. But what we are all about is about parks. And over the last 21 years, we've given 1.4 or 5 million back to the department while funding ourselves the whole entire time. And that's a great thing to do, because it's not anything that tax dollars are going into, but we really feel like we're making an impact on our city. We're expecting, and I was looking at some numbers as I was preparing for this, 52% of our field this year is from outside of the area, which means hopefully we'll see a large number in April with all of the with the LRCVB and the tourism, and I don't know what those dollars are this year yet. I think last year was like 1.6 million in local spending on that day. But we are honored and proud to get to do what we get to do. An hour ago, you would have seen me in work pants, gloves, and sweating quite a bit. So our staff is small, we're mighty, but we are still very much in the thick of actually just starting to set up for this weekend's event. So if you would like to come and see it live and in person, it's quite a spectacle. It'll make you very emotional, but we get a lot of rave reviews on our race. And our theme this year is Peace, Love, Little Rock Marathon. So it ought to be a happy weekend, and it's supposed to be pretty. So we're very excited.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you guys will come and join us.
Grateful for all the work that you've done and continue to do, and what this does in bringing fun-filled atmosphere to the state's capital city. So thank you. And it's very helpful to our budget, so thank you.
Mayor, let me ask a question.
Yes.
You may have answered it. You have a website so I can check out what streets are going to be closed?
Yes, most definitely.
Tell people in the ward what time you need to get out of your house before this street is closed and that?
We try to communicate ourselves very clearly so that on race weekend, we don't, well, we inconvenience people, but we try to make that a very minimum. But yes, it's littlerockmarathon.com. Course closures, course maps, timeline of when the major road closures are. So hopefully we'll have La Harpe open back up the goal is to have it open back up by 5 o'clock on Sunday, so.
I think you do a great job with that information, but I can tell you, somebody's going to get up and they hadn't heard a word about it. And that always happens. It's nobody's fault. But.
Yeah, and we put out signs. We talked to, we put those yard, some of you may have already seen the yard signs, but we put those out a month ahead of time. We meet with the neighborhoods that we go through. And so, and we send out, if we don't have an email address of somebody that is potentially on the course, we'll mail them a hard copy of, this is coming, so be prepared. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, we do appreciate you and your entire team and what you're doing for our city.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Moore, if you'll join me. Members of the board, as we shared earlier, we take this opportunity to acknowledge many members of the City of Little Rock team who have made the decision to retire. Clearly, prior to the pandemic, we had a more formal process, and then the pandemic came and now is gone. And we are now getting back to that as we arrange these medallions that we'll be giving to each particular member. I'll first will state the names of these individuals initially, and then give remarks to Chief Helton, and we'll come back and then name the individuals individually, give them their medallion. And so those who will be recognizing today will be Officer Rodney Blocker, Officer Jessica Eubanks, Assistant Chief Hayward Finks, Assistant Chief Alice Folk, Lieutenant Aura Jenkins, Sergeant Dennis Moore, Officer Ray Marino, Sergeant Dewana Phillips. These are the names that we share our appreciation to the many years of service and leadership that they've brought forth to the City of Little Rock and the state of Arkansas, where they put their lives on the line to protect and serve this great city, and we share our appreciation. Let's give them all a round of applause. Chief Helton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Moore, members of the board. It's really an honor for me to stand here on behalf of this recognition for these valued city employees, simply because when I hired on the police department, they were my mentors, the leaders, the ones that I looked up to in my young career, and then having some of them as my chiefs, my supervisors, my training officers. It's really an honor for me to stand here and recognize them, because I probably wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for a little bit of the contribution and the impact they had on my life to be where I am today. So I'm very thankful for that. Obviously, we only have 4 individuals here today. Some of them had scheduling conflicts that popped up at the last minute. I'm fortunate to be here, but we'll make sure they get their medallions. But I definitely want to take a few minutes to recognize the 4 that are here this evening. Assistant Chief Alice Folk, she hired on 28 years ago, spent 28 and a half years, not 28 years ago, it's been a little bit longer than that, but she had 28 and a half years of service with the department. Officer of the Month in January 97, Commendation Bar in June of 98, Unit Commendation in June of 98, and numerous commendations from both citizens and supervisors throughout the department. So very honored to work under her, not only as a sergeant, but as a lieutenant, as a major, and then just the impact and the fun times that we had, and just simply learning. So very pleased with that. So if Chief Folk, you want to come up?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Moore, and Board of Directors, Mr. Carpenter, I just wanted to thank you for this. I appreciate it. I did the best I could with the 28 and a half years that I was there. Little Rock will always be in my heart. I was born and raised in Little Rock Hall High graduate. Go Warriors. And this job, Little Rock Police Department, allowed me to meet people from all areas in our city, all aspects, all different backgrounds. And had I chosen another career path, those are opportunities that I would have never gotten to have. And hopefully, you know, I helped move the department forward, and I thank you for allowing me to work for you and for the city of Little Rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Folk.
I think it's important to recognize those who we are recognizing today for, you know, their contribution. These individuals not only put 28 years, but some of them put more than 30 plus years into giving back and serving this community. So that in itself is a huge accomplishment, especially in this line of work. It's a very difficult job. It's a very stressful job, but I don't think any one of them lost sight of what their purpose was and why they were here and why they chose to do the job and why they chose to do it here in the city of Little Rock. I want to take the opportunity now to speak about Assistant Chief Hayward Finks. He served the city for 33 years. Obviously, numerous commendation awards, Life-Saving Award, Officer of the Month twice, Officer of the Year in 1996. He was the first black sergeant to supervise a narcotics squad in the history of Little Rock Police Department, the first black captain to command the Special Investigations Division, which is our narcotics intelligence and vice units. He's done numerous community events throughout his career when he was here. He did Toys for Tots, doing things, various Christmas mornings. A lot of times he did things out of his own pocket. So just a truly amazing person in giving back. I believe he's a Central High graduate, is that correct? And just to me, impacted a lot of people's lives for over the career, was a good mentor for a lot of us coming up through the organization. So very pleased with that. So Chief Finks.
I'll be very brief. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the citizens of Little Rock. It was an amazing journey, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve my community for 33 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Finks.
Next is Sergeant Dennis Moore, 35 years of service to the citizens of Little Rock. And might I add, I know it always comes up and talked about residency, but for most of his career, Sergeant Moore lived in the city of Conway. And we talk about residency requirements and people want to be here, but this to me shows a huge dedication for a gentleman who lived outside of our city limits but gave 35 years of his life to this community, not once wavering to serve this city, not only just the citizens, but a lot of it with the youth of this community, serving as a mentor and doing a lot of different things. So he should be commended for that high level of service. He was Officer of the Month twice, Officer of the Year in 1993, and Supervisor of the Year in 2019. Worked as a training officer. He has, been an amazing part of my career. He was my training officer when I hired on, so I always remember his big mitts. His hands were huge, and I can remember him just, we always scared to death. Please don't let him wrap around those things around the back of my neck. But very intimidating, but I tell you what, there's not a man down here who has a bigger heart and a more softer demeanor than this guy right here. So Sergeant Moore.
To the city of Little Rock, these 35 years has really taught me a lot. I really enjoyed my 35 years here. I've seen a lot of changes in this city. And I think the way the city is moving now is good, very good. I just wish you guys the best. I did my best while I was here. And like Chief Helton said, even though I live in the city of Conway, I'm still doing things. This coming Friday, I'm going to be out at Brady Elementary, where I'm doing a display to the kids out there. I train police dogs, so I'm going to take some dogs out there and do a demonstration for them. So I didn't just do my 35 years and leave. I'm still serving the city and still helping. Thank you guys for the time and efforts that you guys have put in for the police department in the city of Little Rock, and Godspeed.
Thank you.
And our last employee who has retired and is here with us is Officer Jessica Eubanks. 30 years of service to the citizens in this community. She had a Police Commendation Award in 2018, Community Service Award in 2019, City of Little Rock Department Employee of the Year in 2019. Most of that, her efforts, numerous commendations throughout her career, but over the last part of her tenure in the police department, I'd say from 2017 forward? 2014. She did a lot of instrumental work with the Metropolitan Votech School here in Little Rock. We partnered her up with there. I was kind of one that kind of nudged her, and she kind of went fighting at first when I proposed to go do this. But I tell you what, she got in that job, and she really poured her heart and soul into mentoring young youth that had a desire to be involved in criminal justice programs, or not knowing if they want to be law enforcement or go into law school. So she really had an impact in helping Mr. Booker out there and develop that program to where it is a vital program now, and being very successful for young men and women as they proceed and look to careers. And I'm just really thankful for what she did. Some of the people that young youth that she mentored have now become police officers in the police department. Some of them, quite a few of them, have gone on to graduate college with honors and get their degrees, and all because of the impact and work that she did and mentored them along the way. So Officer Eubanks, I want to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. I almost didn't make it. I was actually at Metro. I'm substituting there for one of the teachers who needed to be out for a few weeks. So I still am involved in the Little Rock School District. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate the citizens of Little Rock for letting me come and service them for 30 years. It was my pleasure, and I'm still a citizen of Little Rock. I'm a transplant from Helena, Arkansas, but I went to Central, and I went to ULR. And I tell everybody that Little Rock is a great place. You just have to put into it what you want to get out of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of the board, I'm real excited that we are restarting this recognition. As soon as we announce this to the department heads, we've already gotten other individuals that want to come back. And so it's something very personally that I'm proud of. We started almost 10 years ago. But that said, I think when you have 4 individuals that have the hardest job in the city as police officers. They combined, just before we recognize today, have over 130 years of experience. So I believe we deserve them a standing ovation. Thank you.
Members of the board, I've asked Vice Mayor Webb and City Director Peck to join me alongside the members of the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance and those that are involved in the Little Rock School Breakfast Month. As we know, both Vice Mayor Webb and Director Peck are valiant leaders in focusing on food security for our youth and our young adults, and both as city directors, but as well as in their external affairs for the city of Little Rock. And we're so grateful for their work, as well as their team, who are all here assembled today. Whereas the school breakfast program plays a key role in ensuring that Little Rock and Arkansas students are healthy, active, and ready to learn every day so they can reach their full academic potential. According to the Food Research and Action Center, school breakfast leads to reduced food insecurity, improved student health, and better attendance and behavior in the classroom. And according to the Arkansas Department of Education, 63.64% of Arkansas students, including more than 70% of students in the Little Rock School District, qualify for free or reduced price meals in the 22-23 school year. And whereas breakfast after the bell programs, which make breakfast part of the school day, have been shown to be effective ways of ensuring more students realize the benefits of breakfast. Since benefits of breakfast the 2011 to 2012 school year, the number of breakfast meals served to students has increased by 7.3 million, more than 27%. And whereas during the 2020-21 school year, the rate of low-income Arkansas students participating in school breakfast compared to lunch increased to 73.6%. The reach of breakfast and school lunch, a look of pandemic and pre-pandemic participation, exceeding the long-time goal of 70% breakfast lunch participation due in part of the implementation of the school meal delivery best practices such as breakfast in the classroom, second chance breakfast, and grab-and-go breakfast. Whereas even though schools have remained open for the majority of the last 2 school years, school nutrition programs continue to struggle with the multiple meal delivery challenges, staffing shortages, and supply chain limitations. Nonetheless, child nutrition works across Little Rock and Arkansas to continue to continue the rise to the challenge, utilizing innovative best practices honed during the pandemic while school nutrition staff adopted USDA meal delivery flexibilities to deliver much needed meals to their students, whether in the classroom, in reconfigured school dining areas, via grab-and-go meal boxes, and more. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Frank Scott Jr., Mayor of the City of Little Rock of Arkansas, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Little Rock School Breakfast Month. We'll have a few comments by Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And I would like to also thank Director Wyrick and Director Hines, who have visited some of the schools to see school breakfast before the pandemic started, and hopefully we'll be able to get the rest of you out to visit the schools in the near future. If I could take just a moment to introduce our team: Patty Barker, who's the leader of the No Kid Hungry campaign; Bobby McDaniel, Development Director; Jessica Crenshaw, Communications Manager. This is a really important topic for the children of Little Rock, and we have made tremendous progress in previous years. and I can't leave without making a plea for you to call your local elected officials, because we have a bill in the legislature that would greatly improve access to school meals for the children, not only of Little Rock, but the children of Arkansas. And one of the leaders of that bill is Senator Clark Tucker. So thank you, Mayor Scott. Thank you, members of the board, and thank you all. And Director Peck, thank you for your tireless work. Okay.
So I love my Alliance family. I really do. And my work wife, Vice Mayor Webb, who has really inspired me to do everything I can to help support the Hunger Relief Alliance. I just have to brag. So you know, I turned the big 7-0. And so when I did, I asked people, rather than give me a gift, to make a contribution to the Hunger Relief Alliance here in our state. And guess how much money we raised? About $31,000. So I just had to, I love y'all. You know, I do. Thank you.
We'll now transition to our targeted community development task force update.
Good evening. Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good.
On behalf of our Mayor, Frank Scott Jr., City Board Directors, City Manager, and others, we want to thank you all for allowing us to present for the Targeted Community Development Initiative. And standing beside me is our Vice Chair, and I want to thank you publicly for all of your support. My name is Kimberly Enoch, and I serve as the chair of our Targeted Community Development Initiative. And today we will be presenting our third presentation to the board. Oh, let's get this working. There we go. So we always start with this. See in this Little Rock photo, I think I left you with The Tale of Two Cities, literary 8th grade back in the day, but I wanted to start with another book this time. It's by Heather McGhee, The Sum of Us. It starts out with, why can't we all have nice things? We want our beautiful Little Rock to be equal for everyone. So we must advance policies and practices that help everyone prosper together. So in 2021, the resolution here, 15382, in 2021, the Little Rock City Board passed this resolution to support the Targeted Community Development Initiative. The resolution calls on the city government to initiate policies and provide funding in the amount of $5 million annually for 5 years, and with the option to renew at the end of the first 5 years, after a review of the outcomes related to our 6 stated goals listed here: improving our living conditions and overall appearance, improving our housing stock and infrastructure, stabilizing our neighborhoods by improving those conditions for rental housing, improving outcomes for our marginalized families, youth, and also children, assisting in development of businesses so that through micro-contracting programs, and then policy-making efforts to enhance development and improve living conditions. This resolution also directs the establishment of our 7-member task force, and that was to develop short, medium, and long-term recommendations. All right. It's not moving yet. Let's see. It's not moving. If someone would advance it for me, that'd be great. There we go. Thank you. It did. It's still jumping. Okay, let's go back, you guys. Technical difficulties. All right, if you could go back for me, whoever did that. It's not working anymore. Okay, well, the next slide was just Okay, one more back there. Okay, so here we are. You can go back. I'm at the map part. Thank you so much. So here, the TCDI, which we've termed, seeks to address systematic inequality, enhance development, and improve the living conditions as stated in those areas in Ward 1, 2, 6, and 7. If you could go to the map. As a result of the revised ward boundaries, part of Ward 3 is in the 12th Street corridor area, but is also included. So together, these areas roughly encompass the lower half of the city south and east of Interstate 630. So here's our map of our targeted community areas, and our targeted community directors are Director Virgil Miller in Ward 1, Director Ken Richardson in Ward 2, Director Andrea Lewis in Ward 6, Director BJ Wyrick, also a task force member from Ward 7, and Director Kathy Webb, Ward 3, part of our 12th Street corridor. Try to see if it works again. Next slide, please. So our group's first meeting was held August 24th, 2021. Mid-COVID, and then August 2021, the city announced the names of the community members, and they are listed here. Current task members include myself, which is a part of Ward 2 and 3 based on the boundaries, Adam Fogelman, our Vice Chair at Large, Dr. Anika Whitfield, Ward 1, Director BJ Wyrick, Ward 7, Director Doris Wright, former Director Doris Wright, Ward 6. We had Tara Bruce, Ward 2 and Ward 3, and then Pamela Bingham, Ward 2. And we have to give our kudos and thanks to our city staff liaisons from the Planning and Development Committee, Housing and Neighborhood Programs, Office of Diversity and Equity Inclusion. Thank you so much, Ms. Amber. And then Public Works. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So as mentioned, each task force participant is a representative of their community. Since August 2021, we met 20 times during an 18-month period. To increase awareness and community involvement, the task force toured each targeted community area. Utilizing a grid that we developed, the task force was able to identify areas that we needed to focus on: hunger, economic development, housing, infrastructure, and programs. To emphasize the collaborative approach within the community, the task force worked to survey community members in the targeted area via online and paper questionnaires. A total of 151 respondents provided their feedback based on the 6 stated goals. Furthermore, the task force participated in the ODEI Little Rock Equity Labs, connecting with an additional 80 community participants. The task force participated in facilitating activities to organize and refine a list of 31 recommendations based on the task force and community feedback. Next slide, please. So here's a photo of one of our ward tours. Director Wyrick and former Director Wright participated on the task force. So this was a chance that we could present these updates to the mayor and to our city managers and city board. We presented in February and also August of 2022. And so here we are now. Next slide, please. Perfect. So a list of 31 recommendations are available online. We're so excited to have these online under special projects on the mayor's page. But we're also soliciting comments and community feedback to continue our collaborative approach. Now we will take the top 5 selected recommendations for illustrations, and I will turn it over to our vice chair now.
Thank you, Kimberly. My name is Adam Fogelman, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Directors. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm going to skip ahead if we can go to the next slide. In our recommendations, these are recommendations to get the city started. I want to say that first and foremost, there is always more opportunity for feedback. There is always more opportunity to draw more wisdom from the communities that we're serving. But we've got to start somewhere, and in these areas that need the attention of the city, we must start now because yesterday is too late. And the first recommendation that we're putting in front of you as an example is to make funding available, resources available to community organizations to encourage and promote access to food through grocery store alternatives, community gardens, and urban agricultural projects. One of the things that the city is encouraged to do is to provide technical assistance to do what the private market might not do today on its own accord. And an option exists to provide technical assistance through the city to community members interested in beginning a co-op grocery store. A co-op is no different than any other business organization other than it's owned by the people that it serves. There is a difference, though, in the technical requirements that are required to start a co-op, and that's where the city can put its resources to play to aid and assist in the development of these to solve the problem of food deserts across the city. Next slide, please. For years, the city has used neighborhood action plans through the planning department to reach into the communities and to identify what the needs and desires of each neighborhood is. Sometimes, and Director Adcock in the last meeting and during our presentation, I think that you cautioned against this, but sometimes a plan just sits on a shelf. And too often those neighborhood action plans do end up a plan on a shelf instead of a plan in action. So our recommendation is to provide adequate resources to staff and continue to develop the neighborhood action plans, and then to use those neighborhood action plans as formal recommendations from the city residents to the departments of the city and the board in making determinations. One example is that recently there was a request for infrastructure proposals that went out across the city, and the neighborhood action plans were not automatically adopted or consulted as part of that determination of what infrastructure needs exist. And if the planning department is given adequate staff to continuously update and work with neighborhoods to determine what their needs are, whether they're infrastructure needs or planning and zoning needs, or maybe even their desires for the development of private industry within their areas, if those plans can be used as formal documents to turn and consult when infrastructure requests are made, then you'll have a jump start on what the community's desires are. Next slide, please. The third recommendation was to hire laborers within targeted areas to rehab vacant lots and assist homeowners with maintenance and yard cleanup. The city already has programs in place to assist elderly homeowners in making repairs. Those programs could be expanded, could be modified to ensure additional resources are put back into the community by giving priority to hiring people from within each neighborhood that's targeted to provide those services. Next slide, please. This is, the fourth recommendation is kind of a corollary of a previous recommendation that's been made. The University of Arkansas Community Design Center has worked in the city before. I can tell you from firsthand experience, prior to my return to Little Rock, they crafted a neighborhood revitalization plan for the Petaway neighborhood that was one of those things that drew me back to Little Rock and drew me to the Petaway neighborhood. They stand ready to contract with the city, work with AEDI and the city to design a comprehensive and community-based inclusive master plan for the targeted areas. Those master plans could be used not only to cast a vision of what is possible for these targeted areas, but identify next steps to make it a reality. Next slide, please. And finally, but certainly not least, to create an Economic Development Commission. I'm going to put an asterisk on that and say, I don't care what you call it, so long as there is a commission that stands ready to work to advance the quality of life and the vibrancy of communities across the city, ensuring that targets are being met, that the policies that this board adopts are successful, are working to foster economic equity, to foster community growth and vibrancy, and to ensure that there is a functional ecosystem, a feedback loop, if you will, to make sure that what the city is investing in is resulting in the quality outcomes that you set out and hope to achieve. And with that, let's see, next slide, if there is one. So we're here, we're willing to take questions or field comments. Point of personal privilege, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve on this task force. I've gotten to see parts of the city that I knew of, but hadn't seen firsthand necessarily. The future is bright in Little Rock. I truly believe that, and it's just a matter of us putting our head down and doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fogelman and Ms. Enoch, for the great work that you all have spent these past several months at the Willie Hinton Center, really diving into the work and also seeing in other areas of the city. It's truly phenomenal that we have residents engaged like each of you and their entire team. So I want you to know on behalf of the City of Little Rock how much we appreciate you, your time and attention. What I do appreciate is you gave us homework, a set of recommendations, even some draft ordinances to consider. So this work is not done in vain, that we have a playbook that's been vetted by this task force, and will, as you know, as we move through any type of legislative process that goes before the city board, these board members will make decisions and continue to get more input. But what you've been able to do is to do a lot of foundational work that really helps build the foundation to truly address targeted community development areas within our city. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a great day. And we will be following up, as Director Adcock would say, so it doesn't stay on the shelf. Right, Director Adcock?
We have too much on the shelf now.
Could you say that again, Director Adcock? We couldn't hear you.
Yes, I said there is too much on the shelf now.
Thank you for those words of wisdom, Director Adcock. Members of the board, we also will have a What Black History Month Means to Me student video presentation next week in March 2nd, okay. All right, before we move, I do want to make a couple announcements. I know just for business purposes, we will have the evaluation of both the city manager and the city attorney next week. So just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that as we work to always have that done within the first quarter of the following year. And so that'll be scheduled for next Tuesday during executive session. Wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. So please be prepared to have that working discussion on next week. We also have 3 modifications to today's agenda. M1 resolution, as you see, as can be read. M2, as can be read. And M3, and the city attorney and our deputy city clerk did pass out M3 for your perusal. But also, as it relates to M3, want to share appreciation to our Chief Financial Officer, Sarah Linehan, to Director Lance Hines and Director Virgil Miller, who spent a lot of time together to get us to this point, and also to our city attorney for pulling all together these financial ordinances and dealing with GASB and putting it together in an ordinance format, and the entire legal team. I believe Sherry Lattimore as well. Is that correct, City Attorney? Deputy City Attorney Sherry Lattimore, we do appreciate her as well. I see Director Hines' hand.
Yes, I was going to pitch this out here. Since we just got the finalized ordinance today, I've already started getting some feedback on it, and I think maybe adding it for next week's agenda may be a little bit premature. I think I'd like to about 2 weeks. I guess we can put it on there, and if we want to defer it next week, since it's just now seeing the light of day, and circulate it to some folks. Director Miller, what's your pleasure there?
No, we might as well take our time.
Okay.
We've come this far with this, so I would agree with that. That's,
Okay.
Otherwise, see it.
Can we put it on for our second meeting in March?
Will do. And I'm assuming, yes, we'll do.
We just need some time to get some community feedback now that we finally got a finalized product we can take out.
All right. Any questions, members of the board, on the consent agenda? Any questions on the consent agenda?
Resolution, I think it's number 1. I'd read the board communication on that, and of course, we had been looking at buying property, and we had extensive reports on what it appraised for and what we ended up paying for it. So I'd just like to get a little information about this purchase.
Mr. Moore?
And some of the information that we'd gotten on the other proposed purchases that we had. Thanks.
Sure. As the board, as it was noted in the board communication, this is the building that is just next to the new police headquarters. I've always been of the belief for many years that we needed to control that block and really all the way down past up the planning department. Because of our financial health, we finally were able to negotiate an agreed upon price. Initially, the owners, it appraised at $875,000. Initially, the owners had it listed for $1.2 million. Then it was dropped to around $957,000, $958,000, and we settled on $950,000. And I thought from where they were, what they were offering, from where our appraisal came in, that controlling this piece of property, and as you think about it, the district court's building is going to come down and move to where the old police headquarters is. So then we really have some property to to enhance things around City Hall. If you ask me what we're going to do with it, I would say we're going to take a lot of input into the purpose of the building. It's a parking garage now, but I do think it has a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity.
Well, thanks.
And then finally, I do think it's important to control the property right next to the headquarters.
No, I would agree with that. I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about, how it was negotiated, because last couple of pieces of property that we were looking at buying, certainly for the homeless village, there was a lot of talk about the appraisal and what we ended up paying for. So I just wanted to be as thorough with this one, just for my own information, as we were with those others.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I took the lead in this one, so I feel real comfortable on going forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Miller. Director Hines, your hand still up?
No, sir, I'm sorry.
All right. Members of the board, I believe we've gone through the consent agenda, keeping us on pace this evening. Any questions on the planning items? I know Director Adcock has asked that item 10 and 11 be separate for next week. We'll separate those. Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. As it relates to number 9, I know it's discussing some solar panel installations, which I'm fine with, but I would ask you or Mr. Moore at some point in the future kind of update us on our city's plan for us to be more green and what our plans are from a sustainability standpoint with our other properties throughout the city. I know that may not be something we can talk about today, but if y'all can add that to the schedule, because I think that'd be good for us to know what we are in that process.
Well, we can definitely come before you to give a thorough update, but I would love to just give you a brief preview. As you know, we've discussed a lot about energy efficiency as it relates to all of our city buildings as well as solar. We have had ready for quite some time a request for qualifications that's ready to be submitted publicly, and that will be going out in short order. It would have gone out a little earlier, but we were watching what was going on in the legislative process with solar. If you watched that, I know Vice Mayor Webb has. If you watch that solar process, that there's been a proverbial deal struck between the utilities and the solar companies, and that's been passed. So we will move forward this week in providing that RFQ. Those respondents, of course, it'll have to come before the city board as we move forward. We don't know what a price will be, i.e. it's a request for qualification, not a request for proposal or price. But ultimately, we will have more information once those respondents respond to the RFQ on what can be done. And now that we know the playing field, now that the legislative process has completed as it relates to solar and utilities, we're ready to move forward. So that will be moving forward here in the next few days.
Awesome. That's great news. Thank you, Mayor. I know there have been residents who pay attention, who have reached out to me about what we're doing for sustainability purposes, and members of the Sustainability Commission as well. So that's good news. So I'm happy to hear it. Thank you for the update.
Thank you. And also, I do want to caution, even though we get this, as I feel our Chief Financial Officer not staring at me, but looking at me, this is a very ardent task when you talk about, as we all know, we have a $300 million in excess budget. We have a number of different facilities that we manage. It's in addition to that RFQ, to really ensure execution and success, we're going to be doing an RFQ for the legal standing of that, as well as the financial consultant. As many members of the board may or may not be aware, a portion of our funding comes from franchise fees from our utilities, and so we want to make sure we don't do anything to put that in jeopardy as we're working towards solar and energy efficiency. So whatever we do, it will be very highly reviewed. That's the reason why, in addition to the RFQ, there'll be an RFQ for legal and finances as well. I wouldn't expect it to come before the board for at least another 2 to 3 months, if that. I believe we got through all the planning development items.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I had my hand up.
Oh, didn't see it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm trying to help you. I'd like a presentation. I know Director Adcock asked for 10 and 11 to be separate, but I'd like a presentation from our planning staff about these 2 items. I went to a neighborhood group last night and explained what I knew about it, just looking at the write-up and a brief conversation with our planning director. So if he would give us a presentation so our neighbors at home can see what these 2 items are about, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. If Director Collins would approach the podium, I believe he's in the back.
I have a couple of questions, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
So we have two ordinances before us. The first one is the land use amendment, and then the other one is a zoning. And can you talk about the difference between residential low density and residential medium density? Because I think that plays into what's going to happen with the second ordinance. So specifically, can you talk about the density for the land use and the density for the ordinance that's before us?
Okay. The land use is what the board votes on by state law, goes to the planning commission, to the board of what you would like the tracts of land to be. So residential low density is setting aside that you want to see density up to 6 units per acre. So that could be large tract land, but you're trying to get up to 6 units per acre for that. So it's a range. So it could be different types of zoning. It doesn't have to be one particular zoning. It could be different types, but you're really looking for the density of a maximum of 6 units per acre. Residential medium density is the next step. It is looking for a minimum of 6 units per the acre to a maximum of 12 dwelling units per acre. And so when you look at a residential medium density on a land use, you're looking for residential that may be more dense, like a townhome development, like duplex development, even apartment developments that could get that density for that use. And then high density is above that, and that's more of higher rise apartment complexes and those types of scenarios.
And so for this particular item, we're changing the land use amendment to fit what's going to happen in the second ordinance.
Yes, it has to come before the zoning because in the state process, land use is adopted per ordinance of what you would like it to see and then followed by a zoning action.
Okay, so currently it's R2.
It is zoned R2 and currently right now it is residential low density.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so if we could bring up the zoning map for it. Kind of says where it's at. We're on Mableville Pike. We're in between the area of more of where University is and where Mableville Pike takes a 90 degree to go south. There is some apartment developments just adjacent to this tract of land, which is, I think it's 7404 Mableville Pike. That's it. University would be to your right or to the east. And you can kind of see where that bend goes south and then turns into Chico for there. You have existing apartments, MF18, just south of you on there. Do you have residential just to the north of you? If you zoom in a little bit, you'll see there's a long building just to the west, and that is the apartment complex that I was talking about. So what they're proposing is they're proposing this tract of land to go to R4, which means it would be a duplex development. They could have multiple buildings, but the density could not exceed whatever the residential medium density is, which would be that up to 12 units per acre. So if you take, it's like 1.35, you times that by the maximum density. So when we see anything come in, which they haven't proposed a site plan, this is just a straight rezoning, we'd be looking for a density of a maximum of 16 units per acre. It equals out 16.2, but we round to the nearest. We have not seen anything, but they still would be bound by other ordinances as far as the parking requirements. We would look at like 1.5 parking stalls per unit. We'd also look at landscaping. So if you look at parking stalls, even if they do one parking stall in the configuration, that would eat up maybe 50 feet. If it is the sidewalk that's in front of it, parking stall itself and the drive aisle, which both have to be 20, and then a landscape buffer they would need, you're looking at 50 to 60 feet, would have to look at what that layout is on one side or the other, or it depends on how they propose it. And then there also has to be a separation per the building codes for duplexes, or they could, depends on how they would be attached, come up with some type of separation or firewall between the buildings for the different duplexes, but we haven't seen anything yet. So it's just for that area. If we zoom out a little bit, we've seen several changes in density along Mableville Pike. Like I said, you do see some single-family residential to the north, but just to the south of Mableville Pike, you do see some multifamily that went in for it. The board has seen, I would say, more of a planned development on Chico Road, maybe been a year and a half, 2 years ago. I think it was right at the pandemic timeframe that was denied for it. There hasn't been any recent applications for right there on that corner of Mableville Pike and Chico for any other development to come in. The Planning Commission voted. There was one objector present at the Planning Commission, and they voted 10-4, and we have one open position. So no nays, 10-4.
Did you have any neighborhood opposition? I failed to look at the write-up to see if there was any opposition at that meeting.
There was one objector present that spoke, that was there,
Okay.
that spoke in opposition to the application. I can send a link out to the board of all the communication that we received to that date. I don't believe I've received any communication in our office after that, but I will see and upload it. We keep folders of all that communication that was sent out.
The last question I have is the height restriction for this development.
It would be limited to whatever R4 is, which is 35 feet. And that's just the max. It's up to, depends on whether it's a pitched roof or whether it's a flat top roof with a mansard, but it just depends on the building comes in. It cannot exceed that 35 feet.
But that would equate to 2 stories.
It could be.
Sure.
Yeah, it could be. There's nothing that says that in the zoning that a duplex cannot be 2 stories. It just limits it to the height. Typically, that height, that 35 feet, would lend more for 2-story development maximum. It would be hard pressed to get 3 stories in. They would definitely have to be a lower height ceiling than a standard, more of an 8-foot than a 9-foot. And then there would have to be exceptions to how they run air conditioning, ductwork, piping, and everything, because you'd have to, depends on where you have the floors and the bathrooms and such inside the building, so we cannot speculate on what they can do. We can only say that it's 35 feet maximum.
I explained this to the neighborhood last night, and I do expect a few people to show up in opposition to it, so it is separate. Jones asked for it to be separate, so I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes. 2 weeks ago, or last week, I asked you for copies, and you gave me copies. On the copies, it said duplex. I looked at it and I thought duplex, that's, well, you have a little house, and I went to the neighborhood. I spent one whole afternoon and evening going door to door, handing out what you had given me, making sure people felt very secure with this. It's going to be duplexes on this property. And then I found out after talking to BJ and some other people, this is not little duplexes. This can be apartment complexes. And about a year ago, we sat here and we voted down apartments on this property. And so now it's appearing, and it's really appearing in kind of a false look, because it said on last week, duplexes. I went door to door. People was ready to accept duplexes. They are not going to be ready to accept apartments. This property backs up to neighborhood, Ponderosa on Shetland. And with that, their backyards will be right within a fence of these buildings. So you're putting apartments on the backyards of people. So you've got two-story apartments looking down on people's backyards and people's bedrooms. This is not acceptable. I have not seen this in other places. You're talking about 35 feet high. While I was there, I had people complaining about the apartments on the other side of this. And I had looked at people's backyards that were full of needles, alcohol bottles, cans, beer cans and everything, where they stand up on the second floor and throw them down on the people's backyards. And so I'm turning that all into our code officers to go look at. But at no time in the write-up 2 weeks ago was there anything in there that said that this is what this is going to be. So yes, you're going to have a lot of opposition. And the property you're talking about across the street on Chico, right now that has got one of the neighbors' new homeless camps on it. Right across Shetland from this property, there is a new homeless camp that Arnold Crump has been trying to get under control. It's probably got 50 homeless people on it right now, and this neighborhood has that right now in their neighborhood. So they will be here in 2 weeks. I feel like that with having opposed this just a year ago for apartments, and now they've changed this land use around where they can come in and not call apartments, but call all of these other things, but they can put apartments on it. So I don't think that's quite fair. And I will tell everyone that Jamie has again given me all of my handouts so I can go door to door in this neighborhood. This is actually 5 blocks from my house, and I get really concerned with your description of this neighborhood because this is an older neighborhood. It was built all back in the 90s, and lots of these people are senior people. They have lived there. I've lived in my house in this neighborhood for 64 years, so lots of these people have lived there a long time. And I just don't think this fits with our neighborhood. I don't think it fits in that community. And I think that this is another way to say getting apartments into our settled communities. Thank you, and thank you for my copies.
You're welcome. And the other letter that I gave was a summary of some of the points that I talked about tonight, that you can, when you give it to them, if they ask questions, it will have those points in there.
Well, I'm sure after I went door to door and calmed them down that no, this wasn't apartments, then last night, some of them attended the meeting with BJ, and BJ is saying, yes, this can be apartments. So now I think I've got my work cut out for me this week. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Adcock and Director Wyrick. We'll now transition to separate items. Any questions on separate items? All right.
Mayor, let me just mention on item 18 and 19, this had to do with the, and Director Miller is aware, this had to do with the establishing a local ordinance, the district for Central High and expanding the Historic District Commission. Both of those items passed the Historic District Commission, and there's a state statute that says the board has to take some action. But as you can see in the where it says staff recommends, staff recommends referring the item back to the Historic District Commission. There's some items that we need to sit down with the Central High Neighborhood Group, Wright Avenue Neighborhood Group, our planning department, Director Miller, to kind of iron out. So that's the action I'll be asking y'all to take next week.
All right. Director Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Bruce, for that. I've had a chance to visit with the Wright Avenue Neighborhood Association and the Central High Neighborhood Association, and they have both said they don't want this local ordinance district at this time. If they want to do something, they'll come back, and I appreciate Bruce and the staff for talking with them directly, attending neighborhood meetings, answering questions. But again, at this point, they're not interested in having that the way it's configured at this point. So I know the action that we have to take. I'm fully support this and sending it back to the Historic District Commission. And we may be coming back. And again, one other thing, this does not affect the Central High School and its designation. That's all intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know if this is for Director Miller or Bruce, but if we vote to send it back to the commission, is that a no vote, or is that a we thinking about it vote?
No, I believe it has to be, we're recommending that it be denied.
Okay, so we will have to deny, and then it goes back to the
I believe it. I talked with Director Collins about this. He sent me the statute. It was 3 choices. When I read this, it didn't seem as strong, but I think, as my understanding, we have to recommend it be denied.
Okay, and then based on our denial, it automatically goes back to the commission? Okay, just wanted clarity on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the board, any questions on 21 through 24, the public hearings? Questions on the public hearings? Questions on the public hearings? Seeing none, we'll go to our legislative update. Ms. Cox?
It's next week.
Oh, next week. Oh, we are done. It is.
There.
Oh, come on, Bruce.
Well, you all actually put me in this boat, so I sent another memo out on the 21st regarding professional services under $50,000. This is for the zoo. Is there any opposition? Okay.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
So I can't remember if it was a resolution or ordinance that when we have RFPs, RFQs that are ready to go out and they're under $50,000, I have to update you all and send you a memo. Lori sent it on the 21st. And it's just one item, but it's for the zoo, and it's like $22,000 for architectural services. So we're following the protocols, but if there's no objections, I'd like not to wait for that 2-week period, and so we can go ahead and get things going. So that's why I'm going to try to tackle it this way once I send it to you, and go ahead and ask if there's any objections. And if there's not, that'll give us the okay to move forward.
So, Bruce, I'm sorry. So would you like us to weigh in when you send us the email, or you'll be doing it the following week?
Yeah, I'll just ask verbally after you guys send an email.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Director Wyrick?
I received a text message from Cloverdale area, and they're saying that they've not had their trash picked up in 2 weeks. I don't know what the situation is in Cloverdale. She's saying most of the Cloverdale area, and they're asking for a refund of a half month on garbage charges. So anyway, maybe we need to get somebody over there to.
If you'll give me one of her address or he or she's address, and we'll figure out what's going on.
I don't have a specific address. It just says Cloverdale neighborhood.
We'll make sure they do look at all of that then.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Members of the board, we have announced that the State of the City will be this Thursday at 6 o'clock at Little Rock Parkview Arts and Science Magnet High School. Hope that's on your calendar. However, due to impending weather, we'll know for certain later tomorrow if we will change that date. It's supposed to be some major storms and tornadoes that evening, but we'll get more from our emergency management team, and if so, we more than likely will switch it to Monday, March the 6th, but we'll keep you informed. But as of right now, it's Thursday at 6 o'clock. We'll make a decision tomorrow morning, but Thursday, 6 o'clock at Little Rock Parkview Arts and Science Magnet High School. And if it's we change, we'll let you know of that change. That being said, meeting adjourned.